We've had a wild ride with the Berlin Major to this point. The Champion stage saw some of the best teams fall flat on their faces, while the Legend stage had some of the favorites to win the event stumble repeatedly. That said, while there are a few surprise entrants in the top 8, most of today's top CSGO teams are present and accounted for in the Champion stage. The pick'em predictions are set to be incredibly tough this time around, with almost every matchup standing as a toss-up. Still, we'll do our best to help you out with your bracket. Here's what we have going for our picks. We'll go through each individual matchup and give you our rationale. But before we do, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We'll have boots on the ground coverage in Berlin for the playoffs, so look forward to some interviews with some of the competitors. Let's start right from the top. ENCE entered the tournament with a dark cloud hanging over them, in the form of the announcement that Alexi B was set to be kicked from the team following the major. That made their mindset heading into the event somewhat unclear, but to this point they have actually looked rock solid. They're set to face Renegades in a fairly tough matchup. They've had a generally competitive rivalry since the Katowice Major, but ENCE seems to have the hotter hand right now in Berlin. They might cool down over the next few days, but even if they do, they should have it in them to get the better of Renegades. Team Vitality looked shaky in the Challenger stage, as they were handed upset losses from Simon Gaming and Dream Eaters. It's not really clear what went wrong for them there. They shook off that bad performance with a strong Legend stage, where they went 3-1 to earn a spot in the top 8. They faced one of the bigger surprises of the event so far in Avangar. Avangar has looked really good in Berlin to this point, despite underwhelming in many of their recent outings. But even though Avangar has looked solid, this is still Vitality's game to lose. Granted, Vitality might do just that, with star player Zaiwu looking very inconsistent so far. Despite that, it's hard to pick against the French squad at this point. NRG vs Natus Vincere is one of the most interesting matches in the entire bracket. NRG has looked amazing in Berlin to this point with strong showings in both sets of group stages, while Natus Vincere remains just an amazingly talented team. This is a tough call, but we're going with the hotter hand here in NRG. Though the Stanislaw-led version of NRG is still quite new, they've looked excellent in Berlin to the point where we're willing to roll with them here and going forward. Simple is capable of turning any game into a nightmare, but NRG should have what it takes to advance forward. The last match of the quarterfinals is Team Liquid versus Astralis. These two have crossed paths plenty of times in 2019, and while Astralis got the better of that rivalry early on, Liquid has been in control over recent months, most notably beating them in the ESL Pro League Season 9 finals. Liquid's body of work in recent months has basically been beyond reproach, and that has us picking them here despite a somewhat weak showing in the Legend stage. Moving on to the semifinals, we start with ENCE versus Vitality. These two have played many times over recent months, with Vitality getting the better of ENCE on almost every occasion, but their most recent showdown came during the Legend stage, which ENCE won pretty convincingly. We are looking for that to happen again. Though this should be a competitive series, we're expecting ENCE to bring their A game and head to the Grand Finals for the second consecutive major. On the other side of the bracket is a North American showdown between Team Liquid and NRG. Once again, we saw these two teams face off in the Legend stage, and once again, we're picking a repeat outcome. This stands as a huge upset, but we're feeling pretty bullish when it comes to NRG Esports. Their strong Legend stage performance has us looking at them as one of the teams to beat in this event, and while Liquid is certainly capable of defeating them, we're expecting this to be a crowning moment for NRG. That sets us up with ENCE versus NRG in the Grand Finals. As with most other series, this is a pretty tough call. They've only faced off once before in history, splitting a best-of-2 series at CS Summit 4. In terms of past results, we've seen both be quite successful, but ENCE perform ever so slightly better in big events. It won't necessarily be easy for ENCE, but we're thinking they'll be able to get the job done and take the championship. And that's our bracket for the Berlin Major Playoffs. If you have any thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. If you have any friends that need help, share this video. And finally, we'd be very thankful if you'd give us a like and subscribe for our upcoming Berlin Major content.